What's up with BONELAB? I don't think I can think of a more controversial mainstream VR game. From what I've seen, it's either you love the game or you hate it. BONELAB has had its ups and downs, but how did we get to where it is right now, and how is it doing? Well, it's definitely interesting. And if you think you enjoy this video at any point, please consider liking and subscribing. All the way back in the ancient time of September of 2022, BONELAB released, and it was massive. Everybody in the VR space was covering it and loved it. The studio behind it, Stress Level Zero, had previously made Boneworks, which is highly regarded as one of the best VR games of all time. But Boneworks had a problem that BONELAB didn't. It was PC exclusive, which shut Boneworks out to a large portion of players. There was pretty much nothing else similar to BONELAB for Quest. The closest thing was Blade Sorcery, which wasn't really as physics-based as something like BONELAB. One of BONELAB's biggest selling points was how moddable it was. It was advertised as some kind of Gmod VR, with official SDKs and built-in mod support. There was one kind of massive problem though. Its mod support was pretty much abysmal. You could do two things: make avatars and make levels, which sounds cool until you realize that you can do pretty much none of the cool stuff that you see in the base game levels. It gets even worse when you come to realize you can't make anything spawnable. You can't make guns, you can't make props, and you can't make melee weapons. This was pretty detrimental for a time. Not being able to make weapons in your game with, quote, visceral VR combat wasn't very good. There were creators that took it into their own hands and ended up making an extended SDK which enabled all the things that SLZ disabled in their SDK. BONELAB also had some pretty big promises behind it, one of those being 2 years of continued support for the game. This means that the game will continue to get updates for 2 years, so despite some minor issues, the game was off to a great start. It had millions of views, thousands of downloads, a bunch of user-created content, and most importantly, a community. Just like pretty much every other VR game, there were some bugs, so we got a couple patches. We got patch 1, patch 2, and... wait. This is when things really started to go wrong. After patch 2, we went 1 month without an update. We went 2 months without an update. Then 4 months without an update. Then 6 months without an update. And then an entire year without an update. The update ended up taking a year and a half. This was when BONELAB started to receive real hate. The Steam ratings went down, and some big creators even dropped the game. There were so many videos. This undeniably tarnished Stress Level Zero's reputation, permanently. But what I think is kind of funny is that it wasn't really that long. There was a similar time between U12 and 1.0 for Blade Sorcery, yet you heard no one really complaining. Why is this? Communication! They did not communicate, like, at all. They left us with a few tweets and a post on the anniversary of the game. Let's take a look at what Blade Sorcery did in comparison. The devs had enough common sense to realize that their community, the people who paid for and love their game, are the one group they don't want to disappoint. So every so often, they would post and say, hey, this is why this is taking so long, and here's what you can expect. They made sure that their community stayed within the loop. They cared. With Stress Level Zero, we get nothing other than it's being worked on. No expected release date, no reason why it's taking so long, nothing. I'm not really sure how to phrase this, but I think it's because SLZ thinks they are much bigger than they are. Now, hold on. Both Warpfrog and Stress Level Zero are indie studios, but I think Warpfrog acts more like one. They built a reputation for being open and honest with their community, while SLZ has built a reputation for being way too quiet and lazy. They aren't, but I'll get back to this in a minute. I've seen this in the Blade Sorcery community, in the Ghost of Tabor community, in the Pavlov community, and even in the BONELAB community itself. The echoes of the silence of the devs have spread everywhere. Now, when we did get an update, it was pretty good, at least to me. It added some new spawnables, some enhancements, and most importantly, new additions to the SDK. Now, it's still pretty bare bones, but it's shown that there is still work to be done on the base SDK. We then get another patch a few weeks later, adding even more to the SDK. Now, a common complaint about these updates is that it didn't really add anything to the game. But that's also coming from the people who complained about the state of modding in the game. BONELAB's main feature and what keeps people playing it is definitely the mods. These updates not only unlock more features for the official SDK, but they also make them super easy to use. Which means more people will be able to mod, which means more mods. Duh. But something I don't think a lot of people know is that BONELAB's SDK, the Marrow SDK, will be used in future projects. So they are indirectly developing their next game to be extremely and easily moddable on release, which I think is pretty cool. The most recent patch was a couple months ago, and SLZ is still not communicating very well. But Brandon, the head of Stress Level 0, has been tweeting more to let us know what's kinda going on. I think as long as it comes out in a reasonable time, communication won't be an issue. BONELAB and its development have definitely had a bumpy ride, and I'm pretty glad to have been there for it. Do I like BONELAB? The answer is no, I don't. I love BONELAB. It is an amazing game, even if the developers aren't handling it too well. They've damaged their reputation pretty badly, and I'm not sure how long it's going to take to fix it. I hope they learned from the community's outcry and change how they handle their next game. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed or found this video helpful, please consider subscribing. I actually have a Discord where you can join to talk about pretty much anything, Blade Sorcery, BONELAB, VR, music, TV, whatever. And again, thanks for watching. Don't fence me.
I want to ride.